Welcome back, everyone, to the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. I'm Sean Kennedy, joined as always by our NFL handicapper, Dan Erta. It's a special Super Bowl edition of the podcast. So, Dan, I got to ask you, which camp do you fall in? Are you tired of all the Super Bowl hype and all the build-up, the 2 weeks of everybody talking about Deflategate and Marshawn Lynch and everything else? Or are you still hungry? You want to know more? You're like tuning into every press conference. Where are you at with this?
I'm ready for the game. I was really sick of Deflategate. It got to the point where it got so overblown that it's one of the most ridiculous things I can recall in sports. Now there's videos about a ball boy going into a bathroom for 90 seconds.
They're treating that like the Zapruder film. Like this guy going in to take a piss for 90 seconds.
And it's just ridiculous, and that got annoying. I do think media coverage is fun. I like ripping on Marshawn Lynch because I fall on that side of the argument that he's a jerk and that he should talk because he gets paid more in his life than I'll get my entire life combined.
Yeah, you were ranting a little bit about that. Do you have anything else you need to say?
Well, the only thing that I hate is I hate how it's become cool for the bloggers to defend him. To be like, oh, he doesn't have to talk, he doesn't have to do anything. All right, well, you know what? That's fine. He doesn't have to make his full salary. That's a fair deal.
Yeah.
If I go to my job,
it's in the contract. So
if I go to my job and just decide I don't want to do part of my job, I probably wouldn't even get part of my salary taken away. I would get fired.
I'm surprised Skittles hasn't come up to him and instead of saying, "You know why I'm here," just answer every question with like, "Skittles is what brought me here," something. Like I feel like that's a huge wasted marketing opportunity for them.
He's already walking a fine line for wearing those beast mode hats that NFL doesn't endorse.
Right.
So if he starts promoting another company,
but what if Skittles said,
"Whatever you get fined,
we'll give you money for your fine plus an extra like $10,000 or something to do that." I'm really surprised that hasn't happened.
It'd be great. I mean, Skittles is making money off of him now.
Yeah, for sure. But imagine they had a SportsCenter countdown of every time he repeated the phrase during the first media day. So it came to like 25 or whatever it came to, 29, something like that. So imagine them having on the SportsCenter sidebar, like, "I'm just here for Skittles," or something. Like, imagine the great marketing opportunity.
I wonder if Skittles could get him real quick to film a commercial for Sunday.
Well, they did have the one Skittles promo.
They have a promo that has Lynch in it?
Yeah.
See, I refuse to watch Super Bowl commercials before the Super Bowl. It's a pet peeve of mine.
Oh, you mean the actual commercial?
Yeah. Have like a Skittles commercial.
No, there was just not a Super Bowl commercial, but just an actual promotional.
That's a pet peeve of mine. How you can watch every Super Bowl commercial already. I like being surprised.
I will be surprised because I didn't know you could.
Oh, you can. I didn't. I have not watched either, so I'll be surprised too. But
all right.
I'm sounding like a curmudgeonly old man, so let's get on to the Super Bowl.
So let's talk some gambling. You are a perfect 3-0 in the playoffs. The Packers covered the last leg of your teaser, which feels like a century ago. It was actually less than 2 weeks ago, but you had them at plus 17.5, so that worked out well for you. Still undefeated in the playoffs. So we'll talk some Super Bowl props to get started. So we're gonna kind of alternate. You give me one, and we'll talk about it for 30 seconds or so, and then I'll go back. I'll give you one, and we'll go like that till we have all the props out there that we want to talk about.
All right.
So why don't you start us off there with something you like?
No, these are just for fun. I'm not counting. These aren't serious bets. These aren't ones that you should be sweating. These are things that you should be having drinks with your friends while watching the game. And if it happens to hit, you can cheer over a $20 wager or something. These aren't serious.
Mine are serious.
You got your rent money up for it?
Well, I never have my rent money. You should never have your rent money on anything. I don't care if it's the week 10 bets that you're making.
So I'm not supposed to bet twice my net worth every week?
No, I thought we had a whole bankroll management in one of our podcasts where we talked about this.
All right, so first fun bet for me. Julian Edelman's first catch under 9.5 yards.
I like that.
It's minus 105. It's actually under juiced.
Yeah.
Well, like a normal bet being minus 110.
Right. I like that a lot. They're going to do a lot of that underneath stuff where two guys are going to do a rub route and he's going to run a little thing in the flat.
I'm going to get 4 or 5 yards out of it.
I agree. I like that a lot. They're probably going to try to start off with some safe throws to to try to get into the game and get Brady into a nice rhythm. So I agree with you there.
All right. Just hope no missed tackles from Seattle defenders.
Yeah, well, that could always happen, but uh, one that I'll start off with one that I really like a lot. It might be a 2-unit play for me. Will New England convert a fourth down? Yes is plus 130. And I like this because not only could they be losing at the end of the game, and then you would think, hey, they'll probably get a fourth down when they're in catch-up mode or something, but also Belichick is very aggressive, and he has a history of being selectively aggressive, even bucking convention, like we've seen against the Colts and the Ravens in the playoffs in previous years, where he went for 4th and 2, 4th and 3 in situations where it didn't work out, and the pundits kind of got on him for that. But he's big on that. He goes with fourth downs when percentages say you should, and he is very. He knows how good Tom Brady is in those 4th and 1 QB
Exactly.
sneaks.
If it's 4th and 1, you win the bet
Right.
because Tom Brady gets it every time.
He's something like 23 for 24 on 4th and 1 QB sneaks in his career.
Yes.
So I think that could happen at any point during the game. Plus, there's always the chance New England's losing in the fourth quarter, and they're going to be in catch-up mode and going for fourth downs. So I'm surprised that was actually you're getting big with that at plus 130.
Yeah, I thought that would just be like a solid yes/no minus 110.
Yeah. So that's probably my favorite one.
I like it. So far, we each agree with the other one's prop.
All right, so they'll probably all lose. It's never good when we agree.
Second one I like is Jamie Collins total tackles over 8.5. I think Jamie Collins is going to play a huge role in this game. I think they're going to use him to spy Russell Wilson. So anytime Wilson takes off, Collins is the guy who's going to be right in there. And then of course you have any time he's involved in a tackle. Otherwise, I think he's going to step up. I think Matt Williamson, who's a writer who I follow a lot, actually likes Jamie Collins as like a sleeper MVP candidate at crazy odds.
It's plus 8,000.
Plus
I was actually talking to a friend today who put $20 on Jamie Collins to win MVP.
At plus 8, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy who won it on Seattle last year was probably right around there.
Yeah, he might have even been in the field.
Yeah.
He was kind of a no-name guy. But that was my thing. Not that we're talking about doing Jamie Collins win MVP, but that was my counter, was that a defensive guy won last year. So what are the chances that a defensive guy wins 2 years in a row?
That's true. So even if he doesn't win MVP, though,
Right.
I expect him to be very active, and I think he gets into double digits for tackles.
I'm not in love with this one. As you mentioned, Collins is going to be in charge of spying Wilson a lot. He's also their best coverage linebacker, so I think he's going to be out covering guys.
Yeah, so when Wilson throws those 4-yard passes, he'll get the tackle.
But he's not the prototypical inside linebacker that's going to be in there making the tackles every time Lynch goes up the gut, and they're going to be running the ball a lot. So I just it's a high number for him. He's a lot of times this season he hasn't reached that total. He's not like the Luke Kuechly type where he's in on every running play making those tackles. He's a great coverage guy. So that's a pretty high number for me. I'm not 100% sold on that one.
All right, so our first disagreement of the day.
Yeah.
Let's see how I feel on you.
Let's track our disagreements. I'm not saying I hate it. It's just it's a stay away from me, I would say. But, all right. Another one I like. The longest touchdown of the game. I like under 45.5, and that's at minus 115. I think the biggest possibility of this losing is obviously a defensive or special teams touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening. I think both Wilson and Brady they've been there before. It's not a case of an unproven quarterback or a guy that's going to have jitters about being on the big stage. So I wouldn't expect, anything can happen obviously, but I wouldn't expect a terrible game-changing mistake from either of those guys. Special teams, I mean, who really knows? You can't really tell one way or another whether a special teams thing's going to happen.
Right, it would be a fluke.
But then offensively, Seattle obviously going to be running the ball a lot. New England is actually one of the better tackling teams in the league. They're among the league leaders in not allowing big runs of 20 yards or more. They were, I think, top 3 in the league in that category. So with Revis and the rest of those guys in that vastly improved secondary, I don't think Seahawks are going to get any good shots downfield. And Seattle, one of the best defense in the league, in most people's book and statistically. So I don't think New England's going to get any big plays against them. So that's longest TD of the game, 45 and a half is a pretty big number. I like the under on that.
I like it. I mean, I think I don't think Brady's going to throw the deep ball very much at all. I think he knows that that's the way he's going to get picked, is if he tries to go deep to a guy like Brandon LaFell or something, because Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, they're going to pick him.
They're just sitting back in that cover 3.
Yeah. I could see Russell Wilson hitting Jermaine Kearse with the long ball, but I like your odds, and I like the number you got, and I think it's a good bet.
Even last week with the long Kearse touchdown, that was still only 35 yards.
Exactly.
Like, it's 45 is a really big number, and they make it that high to kind of account for defense and special teams. But I don't see that happening. But who knows? Why don't you go with one of yours now?
Next up for me, another Julian Edelman prop. Julian Edelman minus 1.5 receptions over Doug Baldwin. It is heavily juiced. It's minus 150. I still like it because, I mean, Doug Baldwin is going to be on Revis Island the entire game. They let go of Percy Harvin, and then with Paul Richardson out, Baldwin is really the only receiver who poses a threat to New England, and they have one of the great defensive players in the league, and Darrell Revis. They're going to put him on him the whole time. I think Baldwin is going to be capped at 4 or 5 receptions, while Edelman, if nothing else, Edelman might only have 40-some yards receiving, but he's going to have 8 or 9 catches just because they always do. He's Brady's boy. They love the slot. They just like they used to use Welker. And even he's not going to be running out for a lot of balls, but he's going to catch a lot of them right in front of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I agree. Like you mentioned, I think Revis is going to be matched up against Baldwin all game, and I think he's going to limit what he can do. And then on the other side, Edelman is a guy that's going to be lined up in the slot, and that's where the Patriots are going to be attacking because Sherman's going to be posted up on the outside. I don't think they're going to test him too often. It's not going to be like the Packers game in the beginning of the season where they never went there, but you have to be cautious about going after him. And so they're going to go after Jeremy Lane and those linebackers in the middle of the field, and Edelman's going to be that guy. So I agree with you there.
All right.
So the next one, I like both of these. It's the same bet, but I like will New England. It's which will this team do first, score or punt? So basically, will they have to punt before they either kick a field goal or score a touchdown? And I like New England at minus 150. I like Seattle at minus 165. A little bit higher odds than you maybe want to be putting out there, but I just see this as a defensive game. Teams are going to have to settle in. I don't see them marching down the field for an opening drive right after the kickoff. And I think it's a little bit higher than you would like, but I don't think those odds are too unreasonable. So I like the punt in both those situations.
I like it. I don't like taking no on both sides at minus money because then, if, like one team scores, you lose. I'd rather you take a stand and pick one team that you think is going to punt right away.
Okay.
But, you know what? I mean, I absolutely see your point. I think we can all agree that this is not going to be a typical NFL throwing, offensive explosion kind of game. This is going to be a defense-heavy game. And I could see it taking a couple possessions for the offenses to find their rhythm.
All right. Back over to you.
All right. 2 fun ones coming up at the end, but I have one more that I just added because I just looked it up. I bet on this last year, and I like it a lot. Seattle Seahawks over 5.5 third down conversions. And I just love it because of the way they play. Run, and then it's always like a third and manageable.
Right.
I think Marshawn Lynch is going to carry the ball a ton. And I think just the way that their offense is going to play, they're going to have a lot of opportunities to convert third downs, and therefore be able to convert them. And I got this at plus 120. So getting plus odds on that, I like it. I won last year. It was my biggest prop bet of the year last year, and it hit. So I'm going back to that well.
All right. I agree, and I got a good stat to back that up for you.
Love it.
This was from Bill Barnwell's article on Grantland, but I made a note of it. Seattle was actually second in the league in what Football Outsiders terms power situations, which is either third or fourth down and 2 yards to go or less, or a situation where they're at the goal line, it's 2 yards or less. So anytime you just need 2 or less yards to get first down or touchdown. Seattle was second in the league. New England dead last in the league defensively in those situations.
Wow.
So
make me feel even more confident in this.
Yeah, that's There you go. That's a pretty good stat to back up your thinking there. So over 5.5
I think
third downs.
last year they covered it in like the second quarter. I remember how that was just awesome.
Yeah, they did pretty well.
It
That was
might be slightly different.
Yeah, it was a bit of an outlier. All right, so let's talk about our man Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson. Of all the props we came here prepared to talk about, this is the one that we both agreed upon the most.
Yeah, we both like this a lot. Luke Wilson over 30.5 receiving yards at -135, and also Luke Wilson longest reception over 16.5 receiving yards at -115. You can also get a 15.5 on some books, but then the juice goes up to -150, was it?
Yeah.
So, depending on whether you want that extra yard or not, I think it's better to get the vig at 115 there. But reason for this, at least for me, New England was 30th in the league defending the tight end according to Football Outsiders this season. They're going to have Revis on Baldwin, so I don't think Baldwin's going to be a big factor. Then where they got to go? They got to go on the inside, and that's the tight end. They know that that's a weakness for New England. That's where you want to attack. And I just think 30.5 is a very manageable number. So
yeah, I like the 30.5 more than the longest reception one. I think 30.5 is a very, very attainable number. The only thing we have to look out for is they play 3 tight ends, and they all see the field a decent amount. Tony Moiaki and our boy Cooper Helfit also get to see playing time.
Yes.
So
the infamous Cooper Helfit.
The infamous Cooper Helfit, who we've laughed at watching just because he looks goofy when he plays. But I think that's the only way we lose this, if they go to other tight ends. But I think you're right. It's a weakness for New England's defense to tight ends, and Luke Wilson's really been coming on lately. I think this is one of the better bets out there on the prop line.
All right, and I think I agree. If you're on over 30.5, maybe you don't need to be on longest reception. Something to consider. But all right, do you have any more to go over?
I got 2 more fun ones.
Right.
Well,
throw one at us here.
I'm gonna say one. Will Al Michaels reference the point spread, total, or any prop bet? I'm gonna say yes at +150. I feel like Al Michaels is very tuned in to the gambling world. He just did a podcast with Bill Simmons where they talked about this actual prop, and Michaels pretty much even hinted at the fact that you want to bet yes.
Inside information.
Now, of course,
inside public information.
They probably reached out to him because he said that and made sure that he doesn't now.
Right.
But I think anytime something in this game weird happens, like if there's a safety, if there's a certain amount of sacks, I feel like he's going to give some sort of innuendo, like, it might seem meaningless to the game, but to a lot of people, that sack is a lot, like, something like that.
Yeah. That's
just Al Michaels' personality. And at +150, I will take it. Because if it were Brent Musburger, it would be -6,000 for the guy.
Yeah, that wouldn't even be on the board. He would mention it in his opener, I think. So we have the Seattle Seahawks getting 1.5 points tonight against the New England Patriots.
I'm taking the points in the pass.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I agree with you. He hinted at that. He's a pretty not. For being a bit of an older gentleman, he's not a curmudgeon by any means. He's very funny, very with more of the modern things that are going on with the league and culture in general. He's always on the Levitard show every once in a while, and him and Pat Sajak are actually really good friends. He's just I
bet you those two go out and drink more than anybody that we know.
I'm sure they have the most amazing stories, but. Yeah, he's just a very eclectic guy. He has a lot of interests, and I think it's pretty bound to mention it at some point in some form.
I agree.
All right. Another one I find interesting. Tom Brady over 1.5 rushing yards. Is at even money. So he could get it just by some of those 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 QB sneaks we alluded to though earlier. But then you also have to consider there might be QB kneel downs.
I was going to bring up that point too.
So basically, all you need is for him to scramble once in the course of the game. I think he does at some point. I think the
One pickup of 7 yards and you're
yeah,
good.
and you're solid.
This isn't college. Like in college, it's hard because if you get sacked, you lose rushing yards.
Right.
In the national championship game, Cardale Jones over under I think was 64 and a half or something, and he went over. He actually went over rushing, and then on that play where he dropped back and fumbled, that actually people won the bet and then lost it after that, and he never rushed for any more yards. Good thing that this is the NFL. That doesn't happen. I agree. One scramble for Tom Brady, even if he gets 5 yards, I think he's good.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of games this season he had no rushing attempts for no yards. The Ravens game in the playoffs was one of them. But
he's a real competitive guy in the big games that really matter.
Some of those big games down the stretch in the regular season, we saw the one where he scored the touchdown and he was like pumping his fist to fire up the crowd and everything. I think he's the guy that on the big stage you see a little bit more fire out of them than you normally see. Normally he's just kind of like the stoic, play things by the book kind of guy.
And I also think he's the kind of guy like when he's playing the Bills in November, he might
not try to get hurt.
Yeah, like he might throw the ball away or do something like that. But in this game, he knows how important yards are, and he knows a first down would be huge. I love it. I love that.
One scramble.
That's
all you need. I like it. All right. And you said you got one more for us.
One more. This is a shot in the dark. I know it's a long shot, but at plus 650, I'm going to put a little bit of chump change on, yes, this game will go to overtime. Reason being, you've seen this is Football Outsiders, all of the stat groups are saying that statistically this is the closest Super Bowl of all time. And if it's the closest Super Bowl of all time, hypothetically, they could score the same amount of points in regulation.
That's certainly a possibility. we saw it in the NFC Championship game.
Absolutely. And it just has the feel of a game that's going to be close, and I feel like there could be a field goal as time expires to either win the game for one team or to put the game into overtime. I just can't see any team breaking away. And as long as I think that it's going to be this close, I think that's a fun little prop to lay 6.5 to 1 on. How awesome would that be, though? It's never happened.
Yeah, there's never been a Super Bowl that went to overtime, which is, that'd be amazing, and I think that would be the only thing that can maybe justify the hype that's gone into this game, aside from maybe a fourth quarter comeback in the last 2 minutes and a game-winning drive from somebody. That could be the only other thing.
Followed by the balls being checked and they were actually deflated again.
Yes, and then Marshawn Lynch grabs his crotch in celebration.
Every cliche media thing happens.
Yes, and Gronk does some
takes his shirt off,
shoves the guy out the club or whatever he does.
He gave the greatest interview answer of all time this week.
What was that?
They said, why? The question was like, why do you think that people care about your partying ways or something? Yeah. And he goes, because I'm a baller.
Yeah.
Is that a good answer?
Yes,
that's a great answer.
It's exactly why. Well said, Gronk. Well said. So,
you got any more to add?
So you said you're just throwing a little chump change on it. So
only a couple thousand.
Yeah, only a couple. I don't mean actually in terms of units though. Are you doing like one unit on most of these props, and then you're doing like half a unit?
I mean, these are all half unit.
They're all half units.
All quarter to half unit plays as it is.
Okay.
And the overtime one probably quarter unit.
Okay.
These are, like I said, I'm not taking these seriously. I had a good playoffs, way to finish the season that didn't go all that well. So I'm just going to enjoy what should be a great Super Bowl and throw some money on these. And you know what? If I win, it'll be awesome. And last year it worked out well. But if not, I'm not letting it ruin the night.
Okay. I thought maybe you were trying to win all your money back from the regular season in one game. Not the case?
No.
All right. Yeah, I got like 3 or 4 more here.
Do you have a Hama Wanui prop?
I don't. I know that his receiving line is at 6.5 yards.
I love it.
I like that. I
like
Tim Wright over a half a yard. But I don't. I'm staying away from those. My tight end affinity is Luke Wilson and Luke Wilson alone.
All right.
But I do have a few more. We'll just quickly rapid fire. Give me 1 or 2 sentences about what you think about them. Let's see here. Team to have the longest punt return. I like New England at -130. They had the seventh best special teams unit this season, according to Football Outsiders. Seattle had the 21st, and Julian Edelman is a very good punt returner. And Doug Baldwin is the Seahawks punt returner.
And
I
he's the Seahawks punt returner, and he's steady. Well, Paul Richardson was really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Baldwin's steady. He'll catch the ball and return it a couple yards, but he's not explosive.
I think Edelman, there might be a chance of a big return from him.
Well, you better hope not, because a big return touchdown could
not
kill.
A touchdown. Just
Okay.
like a 25-yard return.
Okay. I agree. I like this a lot. I'm actually a little bit surprised that it's that low of a line. And for everything you just said, I think Edelman's going to have at least one or two big returns. I like it.
Okay. Will Marshawn Lynch score a touchdown? Yes is minus 175. High odds, but can you really see Marshawn Lynch not scoring a touchdown this game?
Great point.
Like I think he might will himself through every New England defender if he has to, and then say that's what I came here for.
No, like it certainly seems like there's no way in hell this game's going to come and go without Lynch scoring a touchdown.
I agree. I think based on every Seattle teammate being behind him these past 2 weeks, and just they're going to give him the ball when they get near the goal line. They're
Absolutely.
not going to get cute. All right.
You don't think they're bring Robert Turbin in on goal line?
No, I don't. I don't think he's going to get it. I don't think they're going to go 3 tight end and play action to Cooper Helfett.
That was a big money. Like last year, I actually did put big money on the props because I actually felt strongly about some of them. And Robert Turbin's over 9 rushing yards was one of the big ones.
Yeah, and so you don't feel that strongly about Turbin this year? Huh?
No, I don't feel this strongly about anything as I did last year.
All right. Russell Wilson total touchdowns thrown over 1 is minus 200. That seems really low.
Worst case scenario, you push that. Worst case scenario, you push that.
I don't see Wilson not having any passing touchdowns, and minus 200 just seems really low. I don't know. It's suspicious. It's a fishy line.
It is a little fishy.
Yeah.
Because I think that because Wilson can run, Marshawn Lynch can run. It could just be a combination of the runners, but I don't know. Like I said, worst case scenario, I think you push it.
Right. All right, and finally, will either team make a field goal in the first quarter? Yes is minus 120. I think both teams are going to move the ball a little bit, and Seattle obviously they've struggled a bit early in the season with this, but they've been an outstanding red zone defense lately. And they also, Pete Carroll's very conservative when it comes to settling for field goals when they are down there in the opposition's end of the field. I don't know, just something to think about.
Can I make a point?
Sure, what's your thoughts?
Your props already have New England and Seattle each punting on their first possession.
It's true.
So you're pretty much taking, 5 minutes off the clock for this if you're going to bet yes?
It's true. So you think my props are conflicting?
Yes, I think those two props kind of conflict with each other. I mean, of course, they could still hit.
Right.
But if both teams punt and work a little bit of time off the clock, then you're not. Then it's not as easy to hit.
Okay. I see. That's why we got to talk through these things. That's a good point for everybody out there. You know, you generally want. You kind of want to create a story in your head of how the game's going to go.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And then your props should line up for how that story would play out. And then if it plays out like you think, and based on all your research and your intuition about how things are going to play out, then a lot of these will hit, and there'll be a big payday for you.
I think the story, like last year, my story that I thought in my head was Seattle dominates and Peyton Manning looks silly, and I was right. I don't feel that way this year about anything, but I kind of think that the story this year is going to be defenses shut down the superstars, and guys who you don't really know that much about come up with big plays.
All right.
Guys like Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson, over 30.5 yards on one big catch. So, but not 45.5 yards.
No.
It'll be in between 30, 31, and 45.
Luke Wilson catches a 99-yard touchdown pass.
No, I don't. That'd be okay. All right, so that's it for the props. Dan, any thoughts on the game?
Not betting it. I said this a million times that I don't bet, unless I'm throwing out like a happy unit or a quarter unit on some props for fun, but I don't actually bet on a side unless I feel like I have an edge. And right now, I don't see any difference between picking Seattle or New England and betting on the coin toss. I don't see any difference whatsoever. I think it's a 50-50 chance either way. I feel like if these teams play 10 times, it's going to go, they go 5-5 each. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm excited to watch. I'll put my money down on these props and root for those to hit, but absolutely no bet on the side for me.
All right. I am leaning both towards Seattle plus 1.5 and the under 48. Seattle plus 1.5. I think they're going to be able to run the ball in New England, and I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I brought up that stat about the power situations earlier. Also, New England was 28th in stuff percentage, which was how many times a opposing defense stops a guy in the backfield, and Seattle was the 6th best in that category. Now, New England was very good at stopping big runs this season, but Marshawn Lynch not getting stopped in the backfield and being able to get ahead of steam going downfield, that's something that I think is going to give New England problems throughout the game. And I think Seattle getting any points, I think they were the best team in the league for the last 8 weeks of the regular season or so.
Yes.
And I don't see any reason that should have changed just because they had one bad game against Green Bay.
If the Green Bay game didn't happen, they're a 3-point favorite, I would think. So the fact that they're a pick 'em, or what, 1.5 now?
Yeah, 1.5.
You're getting a little. You're
with New England money still pouring in.
You're getting
so
a little
it might
bit of
even
value.
go more.
Gun to my head, I would agree with you on both of those, under and Seattle.
I know how you love betting unders.
Oh man, how brutal is that going to be? Getting upset every time a Super Bowl touchdown scored.
Yeah, unless it's a long Luke Wilson touchdown, I guess.
But you know, like I said, I'm not picking a side. But if I was forced to for some reason, I would agree with both of what you said.
Yeah, I can't imagine Seattle's D giving up more than, at most mid-20s, which if they both scored in the mid-20s, obviously that's a loss for an over. But I think that's the worst case scenario. I can't envision New England putting up 30-some points against Seattle. I don't even see that as a possibility. So, and Seattle, they're not we saw it in last year's Super Bowl, so that's kind of contradicting what I'm going to say. But they're not an explosive offense that's going to put up a lot of points themselves. They're going to run the ball, then they're going to run the ball some more, and then when they're done with that, they're going to run the ball again.
Yes.
So that's just going to bleed clock. They're going to look to win the time of possession, and it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think 48's an inflated line because it's the Super Bowl, and all casual bettors like betting the over.
Yeah, I cannot argue with that at all.
All right, so that concludes the Super Bowl edition of our podcast. Hope everybody picked up some tidbits that can help them with their bets this coming Sunday. And everybody just enjoy the game. It only comes around once a year, so spend some time with friends and family, even those that don't normally watch football, and enjoy Seahawks-Patriots.
Thanks for being with us this year, guys. Good luck and enjoy the game.
Later on.